Hi guys, Miss Francis here. I want to talk to you about another important property of water. Water is known as the solvent of life, where the solvent is the dissolving agent, in this case, water. Now, water is often referred to as the universal solvent. However, there are some substances that won't dissolve in water, which we'll get to in a little bit. However, water is known as the universal substance because many organic and inorganic substances do dissolve in water, because water is going to break the ionic bonds found in that polar molecule, and hydrogen bonds are going to be able to form. So let's take a classic example of a substance that can dissolve in water. Salt is one of those substances. Another one might be sugar. Think about it. When you mix salt, does it dissolve in water? Yeah. When you mix sugar with water, does it dissolve? Yeah. So why is this? Well, essentially what happens is the water breaks the sodium chloride, the salt, down into its positive sodium ions and its negative chloride atoms. And what enables the hydrogen bonds to then form is this positively charged sodium is going to be attracted or form a hydrogen bond with the partially negative charged oxygen in the water molecule. And here the chloride negatively charged ion is going to form a hydrogen bond with the partially positive charged hydrogen found in the salt. So why is this important? Well, metabolic reactions, those reactions that help maintain homeostasis, occur most readily in solution. Our cells are mostly water. Diffusion can occur when substances are in solution. Our soluble substances can then be easily transported to wherever they need to go for whatever function they're needed for. So what do you think? Do these substances readily dissolve in water? And then how are these substances going to be transported throughout the body? Glucose. Glucose is sugar. We just said, does sugar dissolve in water? What do you think? Amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Proteins. Do you think those are going to readily dissolve in water? Cholesterol. Cholesterol is a type of steroid which falls under the lipid category of macromolecules. Lipids are your fats. From your experience, do fats dissolve in water? Think about trying to mix olive oil in water. Would that olive oil dissolve in the water? So take a look at the structure of a fat molecule. Is that structure symmetrical or asymmetrical? And what does that indicate about its polarity? Is it a polar molecule or is it a nonpolar molecule? And then which molecule, polar or nonpolar, is going to dissolve in our polar water? Oxygen. Look at the structure of oxygen. Is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? Again, what does that tell you about its polarity? Is it nonpolar or polar? Therefore, will it dissolve or not dissolve in polar water? Here we have our sodium ion. An ion is a charged particle. Do charged particles dissolve in water? What do you think? So what kind of bear is going to dissolve in water? A polar bear. Get it? You guys see what I did there? There's a mnemonic device that can help us remember what substances are going to dissolve in water and which ones aren't. And the mnemonic device is a like dissolves like. So we know that water is polar. Well, other polar substances are going to dissolve in water. Glucose is sugar. It's our first source of energy. Glucose is polar. It's going to dissolve in water. Amino acids are building blocks for proteins. They are also polar. They're going to dissolve in water. And they'll be transported via blood plasma and cytoplasm. On the other hand, cholesterol and fats, they're non-polar. So they are not like water. They won't dissolve in water. And they are transported in these capsules that are known as lipoprotein capsules. Oxygen is also nonpolar, so it has to be carried around via a transport protein. You're probably familiar with this. It's called hemoglobin. It's found in our blood. While a limited amount of oxygen can dissolve in water, for the most part, we consider oxygen as not being able to dissolve in water. Lastly, a sodium ion. A sodium ion is going to dissolve in water because it's going to react with oxygen, with that slightly negative end of water. Here are some key vocabulary words that I would love for you to become familiar with. Something that's hydrophilic. A substance that's hydrophilic has an affinity for water. It is a water lover. It is dominated by ionic or polar bonds. The outer parts of cell membranes are hydrophilic. They have an affinity for water. They like water. On the other hand, we have hydrophobic substances. They've got a phobia. They're fearful of water. They don't like the water. And they're dominated by non-ionic and non-polar covalent bonds. Oils, fats, those are examples of hydrophobic substances. Now, the inner parts of cell membranes, those are hydrophobic, whereas the outer part of the membrane is hydrophilic. So, to wrap it up, can you guys answer some review questions? Describe how the structure of a water molecule causes differences between the thermal properties of the water and the similar sized molecule methane. 5 marks means that it's worth 5 points, so you need to say at least 5 accurate points about how the structure of water is different from the structure of methane. And we went through this. For example, water's polar, methane's non-polar. Water has a network of hydrogen bonds, causes them to resist changes in temperature, so it gives them that high specific heat. Because it takes more energy to break apart the hydrogen bonds in water molecules. Methane does not form any hydrogen bonds. Those are just 4 points regarding the differences between water and methane. You need to elaborate on these 4 points to get those 5 marks to be awarded the most amount of points for the question. This is an example of a multiple choice type question. Which diagram represents the polarity of a water molecule? And you can clearly see that choice B is the correct answer. It represents 1 molecule of oxygen, 2 molecules of hydrogen, where the oxygen is partially negative charged and the 2 hydrogens are partially positively charged. And that brings an end to our water unit.